What is up, everybody? This is Wild Nutrition Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Heskett, and this is episode 106. And it's another Coffee Talk Friday. So there's no editing or anything that I do. I literally just record, publish, and we go from there. That's how these Friday ones go. Anyways, let's jump right into today's episode. So today we're going to talk about mindset stuff and your self-talk and why that is so important. And what most people do is really, really bad. Like, we don't want to do that. But I've been trying to also figure out how to do this as real, because we're going to dig in. It's going to get a little uncomfy, a little bit. I think today's episode is going to be pretty short. I say that every time, and then it ends up being like the longest episodes. But I've been trying to figure out the best way to do this as a reel that like hits the nerve, but it also isn't offensive, but also doesn't take like 5 minutes to get the point across. So that's why that's today's topic, because I can go a little bit more in depth than I will for a reel. I think I'm going to record that today. I'm just going to like go for it rather than like side topic. Just take action. Just do the thing. Whenever you have a goal, like, oh, I need to think of how to do it perfectly. So that was me. I've had other things, but like today I'm like, okay, this is the content I have for today. I've been like trying to figure out the best way to do it. Like, I'm just going to like record it and we're going to go from there and we're going to see what happens. So remember, you can always course correct in the future. Not today's topic, but take action, and then you can always course correct. Ryan and I talked about that on Monday's podcast. So if you didn't listen to Monday, go back, listen to Monday. We talk about that there, where you can adjust. Maybe that'll be tomorrow's. Maybe I'll record two, and that'll be tomorrow's. I'm leaving early. I'm going out. It's the last 2 days of rifle season for Pennsylvania. So going out for that. There's still where I am. There's the late season rifle. And so you might start to see some more hiking content. And small, maybe, I don't know. I have to go and check out the state forest area. So this is another sidebar, but it's a cool area that I've been there a couple times. So here, right on the border of Pennsylvania and Maryland, which is basically where I live, there's these things called serpentine barrens, which are very rare. The rock there is high in things like chromium, which are toxic to most plants. So there's these very rare plants that thrive there. So there's these here, like those of you who are out west listening and you have like all the pines, like we don't really have like massive pine groves that you see like out west, except in these areas there are. So there's a lot of greenbrier. There's a ton of these pines you don't really see anyplace else. And there's some smaller like wildflowers that are very rare for the area. So it's actually like they're being preserved because like, oh, well, like these are actually endangered species in this area. Anyways, I can hunt it. So I'm going to go out and, because it's state forest, and try to scout it out, because it's not many people are that go there. And it's pretty, some of the areas are kind of remote. For Southeast PA, remote is not very remote out here. But that's going to be maybe next week or the week after. I'm going to be going and checking it out, seeing what's going on there, see if there's if it's worth hunting. I think it will be, just to get out, but that's a total sidebar. So let's get into today's topic with your self-talk. So we know through psychology that positive reinforcement is always better than negative reinforcement. Negative reinforcement can work for a little bit, but it's more out of fear and everything, and it leads to resentment long term. So think of like the toxic boss or manager. Like, you're doing the work, you're afraid of getting fired, but if another opportunity popped up, like, hey, like, come work over here, we're going to give you the same amount of money, blah blah blah, or even a raise, like, you're gone. Like, versus if you have a very positive environment and someone else comes along and they're like, you kind of can get the vibe like, oh, this is going to be a super toxic environment, but they're like, we're going to give you like 30% raise and you're going to get more PTO, but you know the environment is going to be absolutely toxic. You're going to be like, oh, maybe not. I'm going to see, I'm going to try a counter offer first and see. Now, if money's super tight, you might have to like suck it up. But in general, if you're not in that position where you're like, oh, I have to do that, you're going to stay with the environment that is more positive because you're like, oh, that's just better for my mental health. At least that's how you should be looking at things. And obviously, we don't always know before someone comments. Obviously, like in those situations, we don't. But I'm saying, like, you're already getting the vibe, like, this is going to be a toxic place. Anyways, so we know positive reinforcement is better. Same thing applies with kids. So if you remember back to when you were a kid and if your parents did any kind of like negative reinforcement, like it made you avoid the things out of fear. But if you could get away with certain things and your parents never find out, you're going to try and do it. Like, oh, I'm going to get spanked if I do this. But if they're not around, they're never going to find out, I'm going to do it. Versus positive reinforcement, you learn and you're like, hey, like good things happen when I do X, Y, and Z. So you're going to do those things. The problem is so many people and negative reinforcement, like that type of thing, or the hardcore mentality, it's all over social media, or we talk really bad about ourselves. So when we try to use negative reinforcement with ourselves, there's nothing holding us accountable. Like there's no other person, there's no boss, manager, parent, etc. holding us accountable for negative reinforcement. So guess what? That kid that knows they can get away with it, they're going to get away with it. Well, you as an adult, it's the same fucking shit. So the cookie in the cookie jar, oh, if I take it, I'm going to get my hand smacked. Or my mom's going to be pissed. Well, guess what? Now you are an adult and, oh, I know I shouldn't, but guess what? Nobody's around, so you're going to do it. Versus positive reinforcement, positive self-talk is going to be opposite. You're actually going to be like, no, I don't need that cookie right now. Dinner's in like 15 minutes. I'll be fine. And I'll have one if I want after dinner. So this goes back to how we talk in our heads. Like the devil and the angel on your shoulders. Well, if you're always letting the devil speak, like it's a problem. So things like this will be like, I'm lazy. I'm always a failure. I'll never amount to anything. Like if you're saying those things. So imagine your friend comes up and you're having like a tough day at work or a tough day in general. And you get home and you're trying to eat. You're just like, oh, I'm exhausted. I don't want to go work out. I just want a little bit of chocolate, maybe a glass of wine. And then I just want to chill out. And your friend comes up and like, you're a lazy piece of shit. Like you're a fucking failure if you skip the gym today. Like you failed. You will never amount to anything. And you're like, you're going to look at that person and be like, what the fuck, dude? Like what? Get the fuck out of my house. Why are you here? Get out. But this is the language we use with ourselves in our head. So it's no wonder you don't get anywhere because you mess up and you're like, oh, see, I'm a fucking failure. I'll never amount to anything. I'll never lose this weight. I'm lazy. My metabolism is broken. I'm in menopause. It's so much harder now. Well, yeah, it's harder that you waited like 5 decades to do anything about your health. Of course it's harder. But it's not impossible. So you can't use that language and you need to stop using that language. And this is coming from a person who used to use this language all the fucking time and still catch myself using it today. And it doesn't help. That's the thing. It's not motivating you. Like, get the fuck out of here if you think it's not. Now we can listen to all the David Goggins and all that stuff. And there's a time and place. Like I'm all for like the drill sergeant type thing once in a while, but that's really good when you're feeling strong and you need to really push, or you need someone just to like cut the shit. Like you're ready to take action, like going back to like course correction, like you're ready to take action. You're in a strong position. That's where sometimes that drill sergeant, and it's not negative. It's not like you're a lazy piece of shit that will never amount to anything. It's like, no, shut the fuck up and do the work. There's a difference between those two things. Like, shut the fuck up, get to work. Like, go work out. Oh shit. Okay. You're not saying like, hey, like if you don't do like 10 sets of 10 for back squats, you're a fucking failure. It's like, shut up, go work out. I don't care what you do, get to the gym. Like, go to the fucking gym. Like, Swole, Papa Swole. I know Alex hates Papa Swole. I like him occasionally. If you're in a strong position, that's helpful. But that's not what we're talking about today. So that kind of language, it's okay. Don't rely on it. It's okay once in a while. Again, don't rely. But when we're feeling down and those negative thoughts come to your mind, if you are not talking to yourself like you would talk to someone you love, do not say those things. You have to talk to yourself the same way you would talk to your best friend or the love of your life. If I went up to my wife and said, "You're a lazy piece of shit," what do you think's going to happen? Like, that's fucked up. That's really fucked up to say. Like, if I go up to my wife, like, why the fuck aren't you like working out? I don't care that you're taking care of Victoria, who's 5 months old, and you're breastfeeding. Like, you're a lazy piece of shit. Get to the gym. Like, what the fuck? Half the comment section would be like, divorce him. Yeah. That's not okay. You don't say those things to people you love. So don't say it to you. If you don't love yourself, how can you love anyone else? You're pouring from an empty cup if that's the situation. So you have to start with yourself. And it's a little woo-woo. Those of you who are like, oh, like I like the hardcore stuff. I get it. We need to do a little bit of woo-woo. Like, you have to love yourself first. You have to find confidence in yourself first. If you don't want to be like, oh, I want to love myself, like, find confidence in yourself first. Realize that you can become a strong person, that you are worthy of whatever your goals are. You have to talk to yourself like you would your best friend. Your best friend comes to you, the love of your life comes to you. Like, I've had a really tough day. What do? Hey, you can probably work out tomorrow. Make that commitment. Work out. I will hold you accountable. I'll remind you, work out tomorrow, tonight. Let's do this. And you're never going to be like, you know what? Let's go eat like a bowl of ice cream. It's like, you know what? Let's just like have like a little extra snack. Let's go and decompress a little bit. Maybe go to bed early. And then tomorrow you'll have more energy. It's like, you're going to talk to them in a way that is actually going to help them. And then probably tomorrow they're going to feel a lot better. But if you go up to them and like, wow, you're a fucking failure. Like, you're a piece of shit. They're going to go into tomorrow. Like, they're going to leave the conversation crying. And then you're going to lose a friend or end up divorced. And then the next day they're going to feel like shit. Like, talk to yourself the same way you would talk to your friend or the love of your life. That is the language you need to use in your head. And if you have issues with that, then that's a whole nother conversation that we should address. You should address. Not we. I'm not a therapist. You should go to therapy and address that. Nothing wrong with therapy. Been there myself. It was super helpful. And I've only done 2 sessions of therapy ever. I can tell you it is super helpful. So if you're like, super helpful. In fact, you don't even have to leave your house anymore. There's so many like telehealth type therapy sessions that totally worth the money. So highly recommend it if you need it. Always recommended to help figure your shit. All therapy is, I think people think therapy is like for crazy people. And I did for a while too, because that's kind of how it was like portrayed in mainstream media. But really, it just helps you it gives you clarity to figure your own shit out. Like, here's the action steps you need to take. And so that was me. And I remember leaving my first therapy session. And there's the meme coming out at that time. And it was, a cat in a crate, but the top was off, and the cat was just like staring behind the bars. I forget how it was said, but it was something like, when you're in a toxic, when your friends tell you you're in a toxic relationship, but you say you can't get out. And I was in a toxic relationship at the time. I was like, yeah, that was me. You feel like you're trapped, but reality is like, you literally can just like, oh, if the cat looked up, it would be able to like just hop out. But you build these like invisible barriers around yourself. So I know we veered off topic a little bit, but if you're struggling with this self-talk, because a lot of times, sometimes this is deep rooted, it can come from your parents as a kid or your teachers, or there's so many different things that can lead you to the point where you're at now, that sometimes you do need to go to therapy. And this stuff becomes crystal clear. I've had many clients go to therapy and they come out like, holy shit. It's like, it's not the macros. It's not the exercise. Like, you can do those things. Like, why do you keep self-sabotaging? There's something deep-seated. And then they're like, oh, I figured some shit out. Like, okay, now we're getting results. It doesn't matter how many diets you try or what workout programs it is. If your mental health isn't there and you're just self-sabotaging, you're not going to reach your goals. So sometimes we have to take on the mental health before we can take on the physical health. Sometimes we can do both. Sometimes one leads to the other. It ends up in the course of wellness. There's like the circle of wellness thing. Mental health and physical health are one and the same. It's all part of it, along with many other factors. So don't think that, oh, well, I can just like work out and that's my therapy. Like, working out is not therapy. It has a therapeutic like effect, but it's not therapy. Trust me, I tried it. It doesn't work. It kind of just like numbs things, and those things are going to come out eventually. If you get injured, the problem is if you're using working out as therapy, then you become like almost addicted to the gym. This is where like the working out almost becomes an addiction, because you're like neglecting other things in your life. You can't skip the gym no matter what. Holiday, family event, whatever. I have to get to the gym. I have to get to the gym. And then the workouts get harder because the previous hardness wasn't enough, because you're just like trying to numb this pain. And so it's not enough just to go to the gym, and you have to like push yourself, then you get hurt. And then you can't go to the gym because it's like, or you're trying to go to the gym and you keep getting hurt. Because it's like, okay, well, I hurt my back, so I have to take a break from legs. So I'm just going to hammer upper body. Then you get like tendonitis or a shoulder issue. And then like you're out of commission. And then it's all of a sudden now your quote unquote therapy is no longer there. So how do you deal with those emotions that you can no longer numb? That's where people get into issues. So yes, you have to address those things. So start with your self-talk. Be positive. It's hard. I'm not going to lie. It is hard to do that. It's not something you're going to be like, oh, like tomorrow I'm going to do. Like you're going to catch yourself like, wow, that's fucked up. I can't believe I said that. Or you're like doing check-ins. So I'll call clients out when they're like, anything you need help with. I remember one client was like, anything you need, and they put like, so on the check-in form, like one thing is like, do you need any additional support? And the person like, no, I just need to stop being lazy. I was like, you cannot say that ever again. You're not allowed. You can't tell yourself you're lazy, because they're going to believe that you're lazy. And what do lazy people do? They don't work out. They watch TV and eat ice cream. That's what a lazy person does, or if that's the image you give yourself. So you're trying to like eat better and exercise, but you have this self-image that you're lazy. Your brain doesn't want to go against the self-image. It wants to maintain homeostasis. It wants to maintain itself as is. It doesn't like change. Every time we're battling change, it's hard. Like, your change is difficult for your brain. Therefore, if you're actively trying to chase change, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. Don't pretend it's going to be easy. Nobody's saying this is easy, but it has to get done. Like, you can either stay stuck or it can change. And it depends on which pain is worse. Like, is the pain of being stuck where you're at worse than change? Then you're going to go for change. But if the pain of change is worse than staying stuck in your mind, then you're going to stay stuck. I know plenty of people who they just refuse to change. Honestly, they need to go to therapy. But God forbid you suggest that, because they don't believe that they are crazy, or that they need it. Everybody could use it. But I'm just like, you have some deep-seated issues that need to be hashed out. And they're like, I'll do this on my own time. Like, okay, cool. So you're going to be stuck for a year, and then you're going to reach out to me again, and you've gone nowhere in a year. You should progress a lot in a year. I said this episode was going to be short, and we're at 20 minutes. If you look back at a year, and this is how I always like address some of the things going on. Like if you look back at last year and you don't cringe at some of the stuff you were doing, you haven't progressed. You haven't grown. So you should look back at last year. Like I love seeing like on TikTok now that they have like on this day. I'll look back in content and I'm like, holy shit, this sucked. This was terrible. If you're not doing that, you haven't been progressing. I remember as a kid doing this with like artwork from year to year. I was huge into art. Still love art. I just don't really do it all that much. And I would look back at my old drawings and paintings and things and like, wow, that sucked. Well, no, it was the best at the time, but you should, from a year from now, progress tremendously. If you're not, that's a problem. And sometimes things get capped out. Like, for example, my bench press probably isn't going to go up 100 pounds in a year. Probably not happening. But it's also like at a point where it's like less than 1% of the population can bench press what I bench press. So I don't need to progress that much because I'm literally in the top 1%. That's not to brag. That's just the facts there. So I also don't need to focus that much there. Whereas maybe with business or content or other things where I don't have the level of skill, like that skill isn't mastered yet, and that stuff should be progressing. And same thing applies to you. If you're like, well, my work I do just fine, like great. Do you want to stay in the same position you're at currently, or do you want to move up? If you want to move up into a leadership position, but your leadership skills suck, maybe you need to work on leadership. And you're like, fuck. Okay. And this is where it's like, okay, if you're in a strong position, you can be like, cut the shit. I need to do this. And that's the difference between the two of like, oh shit. Okay. These skills suck of mine. And I think Elite FTS, Dave Tate from Elite FTS said, I think he was the one who said this, is like you have 4 levels of skill. Shit, suck, good, great. That's it. Like there's a big shift from like suck to good. Like shit is terrible. Suck is like you've gotten better, but it's not great. Like nobody's saying anything. Good, okay, awesome. You can get the job done. Great. It's not outstanding. It's like a C plus. Great. Okay. People are talking about like, this is the person you want to go to. That's where you need to get your level of skill. And that takes experience, that takes learning, that takes other things. So it depends. And it can be, maybe, I talked about art, maybe you want to take up painting. And it's that. Great. You're going to suck at everything. And it's okay. If you start something new, guess what? Everybody starts at suck. So if you're like, well, I'm so bad at it. Yeah. That's the thing. When we were kids and we were in school, we sucked at everything. I sucked at math. Do you know how long it took me to learn multiplication? Like, it took me a long 7s and 8s still challenge me to this day. You ask for a multiple of 7 or a multiple of 8. It takes me longer than every other multiple. Still to this day. Like 6 times 7, I'm like, what is that? So anything, we have these skills that when we were growing up, we all sucked at them. But as an adult, you think, like, I should be good at everything. No, you're going to suck. You're going to suck at everything to start. But then you get better and better and better. So that is not what you should be telling yourself in your head. Like, oh, I suck. Like, why even bother? That's a problem. But it's like, I'm not good now, but I can get so much better. I just need to keep working on it and we'll get better. There's a difference in those statements. One is motivating. One, you're going to stop after 2 weeks. Because if you tell yourself, we're pushing 25 minutes now. If you tell yourself every single day, I suck, I suck, I suck, then it becomes like, why bother? After like 4 weeks of saying I suck every single time, like 30 days of telling yourself I suck constantly, do you think you're going to be motivated to do anything. Or if you're like, man, a week ago, this was hard. This is much easier. Like, I'm getting better. Hey, 2 weeks ago, like, this was super challenging, and now it's a breeze. Like, I got this. I'm getting a little bit better. I'm not where I want to be, but I am heading in the right direction. What do you think sounds more motivating? Option 2. After 8 weeks, who do you think is going to be more consistent? After 12 weeks, after 26 weeks, after 352 days, the person who said, I suck 5 times a day, whatever 5 times 352 is, do you think they're consistent, or do you think they stopped at week 4 and the other person continued on? And the other person's like dreaming like, oh, I wish. It must be nice. You're so lucky. Like, no, like they just stuck with it. But that language is a big driver. So if you're that person who tells yourself, why bother? I suck. I'm a failure. I'll never lose weight. I'll never be fit. I'll never be in shape. I'll never look good. Like, if you're saying all of those things, then you're going to stay stuck. Like, you're going to make it come true. But if you change that language, you start changing it today, and you catch yourself when you're saying those negative things, then you're going to eventually reach your goal. You're going to figure it out. Because if the other way of like, okay, I'm going to reach this goal, then you go into problem solving. Then you start to figure shit out of like, okay, how can I reach this goal? What do I need to adjust and change to move there? Versus the other person like, well, see, roadblock in the way. Might as well like just eat ice cream for the rest of the week because I failed one day. Like, fuck it, I'll start next week. So if you want to grow as a person, use positive self-talk. Don't be negative to yourself. And as always, happy fucking Friday. Hope you enjoy the weekend. It's snowing here. It's the last weekend for deer rifle season. So hopefully I can come to you guys and say like we really got a nice full freezer. I mean, our freezer's pretty full, but there's a little bit more that I want. And speaking of things that I'm going to probably suck at, if I get a few more deer, I can try out making our own sausage this year. So I want to do some Italian sausage, maybe some chorizo. Never done it ever. So I'm probably going to mess it up. That's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I know it's not going to be perfect, but why not? Why not? So that's why I'm also doing it with like, we need to get like a little extra. But we'll see what happens. Anyways, if this episode is great, make sure to just go and share it. And as always, leave a review as well. That helps other people find the show. So drop a 5-star review if you haven't already. And write a review if you're on a platform that allows it, like Apple or Spotify.